I'm deeply offended by the insinuation of revealing that clip without the question that was asked of me. I will not pretend to be a victim in this country, and I know that that makes many people on the left uncomfortable.
Do you hate Americans with black skin color?
Absolutely not. All they want is for Black Americans to realize that they are Americans first and foremost.
We welcome all of our distinguished witnesses and thank them for participating in today's hearing. Ms. Owens.
There we go. Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member Mr. Collins, thank you for having me here today. I received word on my way in that many of the journalists were confused as to why I was invited, and none of them knew that I myself was the victim of a hate crime when I was in high school. That's something that very few people know about me because the media and the journalists and the left are not interested in telling the truth about me because I don't fit the stereotype of what they like to see in black people. I'm a Democrat, I support the President of the United States, and I advocate for things that are actually affecting the black community. I'm honored to be here today in front of you all because the person sitting behind me is my 75-year-old grandfather. I've always considered myself to be my grandfather's child, and I mean to say that my sense of humor, my passion, and my work ethic all comes from the man that is sitting behind me. My grandfather grew up on a sharecropping farm in the segregated South. He grew up in an America where words like racism and white nationalism held real meaning under the Democrat Party's Jim Crow laws. My grandfather's first job was given to him at the age of 5 years old, and his job was to lay tobacco out to dry in an attic in the South. My grandfather has picked cotton, and he has also had experiences with a Democrat terrorist organization of that time, the Ku Klux Klan. They would regularly visit his home and they would shoot bullets into it. They had an issue with his father, my great-grandfather. During my formative years, I had the privilege of growing up in my grandfather's home. It's going to shock the committee, but not once, not in a single breath of a conversation did my grandfather tell me that I could not do something because of my skin color. Not once did my grandfather hold a gripe against the white man. I was simply never taught to view myself as a victim because of my heritage. I learned about faith in God, family, and hard work. Those were the only lessons of my childhood. There isn't a single adult today that in good conscience would make the argument that America is a more racist or a more white nationalist society than it was when my grandfather was growing up. And yet we're hearing these terms sent around today because what they want to say is that brown people need to be scared, which seems to be the narrative that we hear every 4 years right ahead of a presidential election. Here are some things we never hear. 75% of the black boys in California don't meet state reading standards. In inner cities like Baltimore, within 5 high schools and 1 middle school, not a single student was found to be proficient in math or reading in 2016. The single motherhood rate in the black community, which was at 23% in the 1960s when my grandfather was coming up, is at a staggering 74% today. I am guessing there will be no committee hearings about that. There are more black babies aborted than born alive in cities like New York, and you have Democrat Governor Andrew Cuomo lighting up buildings to celebrate late-term abortions. I could go on and on. My point is that white nationalism did not do any of those things that I just brought up. Democrat policies did. Let me be clear. The hearing today is not about white nationalism or hate crimes. It's about fear-mongering, power, and control. It's a preview of a Democrat 2020 election strategy, same as the Democrat 2016 election strategy. They blame Facebook, they blame Google, they blame Twitter. Really, they blame the birth of social media, which has disrupted their monopoly on minds. They called this hearing because they believe that if it wasn't for social media, voices like mine would never exist, that my movement Blexit, which is inspiring black Americans to leave the Democrat Party, would have never come about, and they certainly believe that Donald Trump would not be in office today. Looking on the next thing to focus on now that the Russian collusion hoax has fallen apart. What they won't tell you about the statistics and the rise of white nationalism is that they've simply changed the data set points by widening the definition of hate crimes and upping the number of reporting agencies that are able to report on them. What I mean to say is that they're manipulating statistics. The goal here is to scare blacks, Hispanics, gays, and Muslims into helping them censor dissenting opinions, ultimately into helping them regain control of our country's narrative, which they feel that they lost. They feel that President Donald Trump should not have beat Hillary. If they actually were concerned about white nationalism, they would be holding hearings on Antifa, a far-left, violent, white gang who determined one day in Philadelphia in August that I, a black woman, was not fit to sit in a restaurant. They chased me out. They yelled race traitor to a group of black and Hispanic police officers who formed a line to protect me from their ongoing assaults. They threw water at me. They threw eggs at me. and the leftist media remained silent on it. If they were serious about the rise of hate crimes, they may perhaps be examining themselves and the hate that they have drummed up in this country. Bottom line is that white supremacy, racism, white nationalism, words that once held real meaning, have now become nothing more than election strategies. Every 4 years, the Black community is offered handouts and fear. Handouts and fear. Reparations and white nationalism. This is the Democrat preview. Of course, society is not perfectible. We've heard testimony of that today. There are pockets of evil that exist, and those things are horrible, and they should be condemned. But I believe the legacy and the ancestry of Black Americans is being insulted every single day. I will not pretend to be a victim in this country, and I know that that makes many people on the left uncomfortable. I want to talk about real issues in Black America. I want to talk about real issues in this country and real concerns. The biggest scandal, this is my last sentence, in American politics is that Democrats have been conning minorities into the belief that we are perpetual victims, all but ensuring our failure. Racial division and class warfare are central to the Democrat Party platform. They need blacks to hate whites, the rich to hate the poor, and soon enough it'll be the tall hating the short.
The time of the witness has expired. Ms. Clark?
I do want to go back to Ms. Owens for a second. You made a statement at the very beginning on why you were here, and I think the victim of, if you've heard your story, and you've told that story many times, but if you would share how that's affected your view as you go forward and the issues that you're wanting to address today.
Certainly. So when I was speaking about different classifications of hate crimes, which actually has increased and obviously impacts statistics, when I was in high school, I received a slew of messages from the Democrat governor of Connecticut's son, Mr. Daniel Malloy, and at the time he was the mayor of Stamford, and his son, along with 3 other boys, referred to me as the N-word, threatened to tar and feather my family and put a bullet in the back of my head like they did to Martin Luther King. This is a story that's not often spoken about because the media has no interest in telling the truth about how it's formed my views towards conservatism. The media turned it into a firestorm, and it became a political tool for people to gain power. The NAACP used me at that time, would just meet me outside of the school with cameras in tow to speak out against the crimes. Of course, now I'm older, and I realize that that's really just a fundraising mechanism, and that a lot of these groups survive because they cannot have the problem fixed, ever. The NAACP never wants racism to go away. Bottom line, all I was looking for at that time was an apology. The youngest person in that car was 14 years old. And I understand that human beings can make mistakes and do stupid things, but we're not in a society anymore where an apology is good enough, and we're obsessed with labels. We're obsessed with labeling people as racist, as they did to those young boys, and it simultaneously impacted me as a victim. It's not fun to be a victim, and I'm adamantly against victimhood, and I speak out to the Black community about how it ultimately harms us.
And I appreciate Anthony for sharing that, and I think as we go forward, as I started my testimony with, is all of us here need to be heard. This is exactly what we're advocating. The more we hear, the more we can then at least relate to those who we may disagree with or agree with, and I thank you for being a part, and the rest. With that, I yield.
And, you know, I look forward to the day when Martin Luther King Jr.'s dream is a reality, where we judge people by the content of their character, not the color of their skin. But I'm amazed how many times when there's an objection to something someone says, that if the person making the objectionable comment happens to be Black or Jewish, then you're a racist or you're anti-Semite. And I've been amazed, Mr. Klein, the Anti-Defamation League has called you, as I understand, a Jewish person to be anti-Jewish. It's just interesting.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Owens, I'm going to direct these questions to you, if I may. I don't know that you've seen this, but it's a memorandum that the majority Democrats prepare for the committee members. And in this memorandum, they go through the various witness names and organizations that they represent, the Anti-Defamation League, Equal Justice Society, the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law, and then we get to you. Oh my goodness. Candace Owens, Director of Communications at the Conservative. Nobody else is described as progressive or liberal, but you are described as a conservative advocacy group, Turning Point USA, and a conservative commentator and political activist known for her criticism of Black Lives Matter and the Democrat Party. I think you've caused my friends on the left to go to their safe spaces, and I'd love to explore with you a little bit of the reason for that. Do you consider yourself a conservative?
I am a conservative, yes.
Okay. Are you pro-life?
I am pro-life.
Okay. Does that trigger people when you see them, that they know that you're pro-life?
It makes them very upset, and Democrats hate me.
Do you own a gun?
Pardon?
Do you own a gun?
No, sir.
When next time you come to Colorado, we'll take you shooting. Are you a Christian?
Yes, I am.
Are you proud of your family?
I'm very proud of my family.
Okay. Let me ask you something. Do you hate Americans with black skin color?
Absolutely not. I actually love Americans with black skin color so much that I'm willing to fall on the sword 1,000 times for them to wake up and realize that we are being lied to, abused, and used by the Democrat Party.
How about Americans with white skin color? Do you hate them?
I do not, and that's a problem for people on the left.
Do you hate Hispanics?
I do not.
Do you hate Asians?
I do not.
Do you hate lesbians or gays or anybody from the LGBTQ community?
Nope, I've got all of that in my family.
I'm baffled because in the chairman's opening statement, he said that you openly associate with purveyors of hate.
Yes, purveyors of hate, by his definition, is anybody that supports the president. I support the president because he's done a tremendous job in helping the black community, despite all of the rhetoric from the media and leftists, which do not want him to be successful.
Tell me a little bit about how the president has helped the black community, if you would, please.
Well, he's lowered the black unemployment rate. It's the lowest it's ever been in the history. He's getting us off of our feet. We see, I believe the last number I checked was 3.5 million people are off of food stamps, something that the Black Caucus sat down and didn't applaud. Neither did any of the Democrats applaud, because they want a system where blacks are dependent on the government. They are the people that put in place the policies that broke down the black family, and the biggest problem that's facing our community is father absence. In every room that I've been in with the president, he talks about real issues, and he doesn't pander to us. He doesn't do Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's southern drawl accent and speaking to us like we're slaves. He asks us important questions, and the most important question he could have asked was, Black America, what do you have to lose? Because we were already losing under Democrat leadership.
Do you believe that you openly associate with purveyors of hate?
I absolutely do not. I have no tolerance for hate whatsoever.
Do you believe that college campuses should be open discussions, or there should be open discussions on college campuses for various issues?
I absolutely do. You know, I do a campus tour tonight. I'm flying up to the University of Connecticut to continue that, and we are being met with aggressive leftist groups. 3 Antifa chapters have declared they're going to try to shut it down, and we face this violence every day on the left, and nobody ever wants to talk about it.
And I guess what I was going to ask you, you went on to explain it before I got a chance to, but have you ever been disinvited from speech opportunities at college campuses because of your conservative views?
All the time.
Is that a form of hatred, do you think?
Of course it is, and we're not talking enough about political hatred in this country. We're not talking enough about conservative activists being attacked, like myself. We had a student whose dorm was set on fire for being a member of the Turning Point chapter, and all we preach is for free markets and capitalism as a means to lift the most people out of poverty. That is my belief, and of course, my main thesis is that black people do not have to be Democrats, and we are not owned by the left, and I understand that causes some people trouble.
So, as a conservative, you've attended many conservative events and visited with many conservatives. And I am not denying for a moment that there are white supremacists and we should condemn white supremacists, that there are Nazis and we should condemn Nazis, that there are hateful groups all across the political spectrum and we should condemn those. But in your interactions with conservatives, have you seen hateful speech, bigotry, racism among the conservatives that you've associated with?
I speak in front of conservatives probably 3 times a week. I jump on a stage and I say everything pro-black, and they are so supportive and they applaud. All they want is for black Americans to realize that they are Americans first and foremost. Conservatives are patriots. The president is a patriot, and I'm a patriot, and there is no skin color in patriotism.
Thank God we have you. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
The gentleman from Arizona, Mr. Biggs.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I ask unanimous consent to include in the record a list of political violence perpetrated or promoted by leftist organizations.
Without objection.
Thank you. And I also, you know, I'm riffing on something that Mr. Buck, the gentleman from Colorado, was talking about. But in the listing of witnesses in the chairman's memo, it did something I've not seen in my brief time in Congress, or indeed in my many years of legislative service in my home state. That is an editorial comment about a witness. Some might even consider that this not so subtle editorializing is in and of itself an indicia of animus. It's unfortunate, but it demonstrates how easy it is to let one's bias appear even in what is supposed to be an innocuous listing of witnesses for this hearing.
Would the gentleman yield?
Yes, I will yield, sir.
I assume you're referring to what is written about Candace Owens, where it says she's the Director of Communications at the conservative advocacy group Turning Point USA and a conservative commentator and political activist known for her criticism of Black Lives Matter and of the Democratic Party. I don't think she could quarrel with the accuracy of that. It's a simple statement of who she is.
Reclaiming my time. What I will say about this is you never, ever see anybody characterized in any other list of witnesses. This is the first time I've ever seen that, other than the stating what they represent or the group that they are from. This is seemingly anyway, going beyond the bounds of what is the norm. That is an indication to me of how easy it is to demonstrate animus. So it means, for a logical question of Ms. Owens, which she's already addressed to some respect, is as you talk, Ms. Owens, and you go to universities, like you're going to UConn tonight, do you receive hate speech directed at you?
All the time, and I really do feel that the media on the left has made it okay. And I do just want to add that my biography, which I submitted, you reduced it to one sentence, calling me just a conservative activist, and it wasn't what I said or what I submitted to your office last night. And I just think that you opened with anti-Black bias, and I see it coming from the chairman today.
And Ms. Owens, these efforts to shut you down when you speak publicly on issues that you care about under the protection of the First Amendment, are they peaceful?
No, they're really scary. They threaten us online perpetually. I receive threatening letters to my home when the media drums up narratives and pretends that I hate Black people or that I hate gays or that I hate Muslims with no evidence supporting any of those claims. What they're inviting is for people to think it's okay to be violent towards me when they see me. They want to make it an act of virtue for people to be violent towards Black conservatives that are outspoken.
There are, on occasion, false accusations and staged hate crimes. What impact do those have on actual, real hate crimes?
It makes it harder, I think, for people to come forward or for people to believe it. I don't see enough condemning of what Jussie Smollett did to this nation in terms of tearing us apart and causing a debate. And obviously the left was quick to believe him and put him on a platform despite absolutely no evidence. And it just makes it harder. Again, it just makes it harder for us to come together as a nation, which I think is what the president is trying to do, bring everybody together.
And Ms. Owens, are you familiar with the case of Isabella Chow, who is a UC Berkeley senator who was harassed because of a position she took?
I'm not.
Well, Ms. Chow took a position of basically abstaining from a vote due to religious concerns and was harassed out of her position, and she was hate speech galore, all arising and going forward. So it isn't that there isn't hate speech. It's that we need to condemn all hate speech. Your thoughts?
That's correct. I definitely agree. We need to condemn all hate speech. There's only one type of hate speech like that they like to talk about and give a platform to. There is a double standard in this country, and that double standard, I think, is being felt the most by Black conservatives, the Jewish community, and Christians.
Mr. Chair, I would love to see my Democratic colleagues condemn anti-Semitism. I have a resolution that I have filed. One of their own members of their own caucus have said very racist anti-Semitic remarks and have failed to directly address that. So to your point, I would love to see the other side of the aisle condemn one of their own for their own anti-Semitic remarks. I would like to take my time to yield to Ms. Owens. If there's anything that's been said, I'm the last Republican here, so if there's anything that you would like to respond to, I'd like to give you the balance of my time to do that.
Yes, I actually wanted to respond to Congressman Cicilline because he was making references to me, and I thought that was a bit cowardly. He said he was dishonest when he said that the president refused to condemn white nationalism. Mr. Potts just literally gave the exact quote of the president doing just that. He does not want to accept the reality that the president has, under multiple occasions, condemned white supremacy and white nationalism, and the best condemnation of that is in the president helping the Black community every single day with his policies. He also brought up family separation. This seems to only be an issue for illegals at the border, and nobody ever wants to talk about Black babies being separated from the womb of Black mothers. So if he actually cared about that, he would be embracing me. And lastly, he brought up the rhetoric of the president as in the same breath that he referred to me as despicable. I'm tired of hearing the left refer to people as despicable, as deplorable. We are Americans and we are patriots, and even if we disagree with you, name-calling should not be something that is done, especially in these chambers.
Thank you, Mrs. Owens.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In congressional hearings, the minority party gets to select its own witnesses. And of all the people that Republicans could have selected, they picked Candace Owens. I don't know Miss Owens. I'm not going to characterize her. I'm going to let her own words do the talking. So I'm going to play for you the first 30 seconds of a statement she made about Adolf Hitler.
I agree. I actually don't have any problems at all with the word nationalism. I think that it gets, the definition gets poisoned by elitists that actually want globalism. Globalism is what I don't want. So when you think about, whenever we say nationalism, the first thing people think about, at least in America, is Hitler. You know, he was a National Socialist, but if Hitler just wanted to make Germany great and have things run well, okay, fine. Problem is that he had dreams outside of Germany. He wanted to globalize. He wanted everybody to be German, everybody to be speaking German.
All right, so my first question is to Ms. Hirschenoff. Ms. Owens said, quote, if Hitler just wanted to make Germany great and have things run well, okay, fine. The problem is that he had dreams outside of Germany. So when people try to legitimize Adolf Hitler, does that feed into white nationalist ideology?
It does, Mr. Lieu. I know that Ms. Owens distanced herself from those comments later, but we expressed great concern over the original comments.
Great, thank you.
Gentleman from North Dakota, Mr. Armstrong.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I would yield my time to Mr. Reschenthaler from Pennsylvania.
Thank you. Ms. Owens, I'm sorry, we just started a recording. Would you like time to respond to that?
Yes, I think it's pretty apparent that Mr. Lieu believes that black people are stupid and will not pursue the full clip in its entirety. He purposely presented an extracted clip.
The witness will suspend for a moment. It is not proper to refer disparagingly or to a member of the committee. The witness will not do that again. Witness may continue.
Sure, even though I was called despicable.
Witness may not refer to a member of the committee as stupid.
I didn't refer to him as stupid. That's not what I said. That's not what I said at all. You didn't listen to what I said. May I continue? As I said, he is assuming that black people will not go pursue the full 2-hour clip. And he purposefully he cut off, and you didn't hear the question that was asked of me. He's trying to present as if I was launching a defense of Hitler in Germany, when in fact, the question that was asked of me was pertaining to whether or not I believed that whether or not I believed in nationalism, and that nationalism was bad. And what I responded to was that I do not believe that we should be characterizing Hitler as a nationalist. He was a homicidal, psychopathic maniac that killed his own people. A nationalist would not kill their own people. That is exactly what I was referring to in the clip, and he purposely wanted to give you a cut-up similar to what they do to Donald Trump to create a different narrative. That was unbelievably dishonest, and he did not allow me to respond to it, which is worrisome and should tell you a lot about where people are today in terms of trying to drum up narratives. By the way, I would like to also add that I work for Prager University, which is run by an Orthodox Jew. Not a single Democrat showed up to the embassy opening in Jerusalem. I sat on a plane for 18 hours to make sure that I was there. I'm deeply offended by the insinuation of revealing that clip without the question that was asked of me.
Thanks, Mrs. Owens, and I yield the remainder of my time.